Entrepreneurs, business owners, and even my ministry leaders, I got a question for you. Do you find yourself running out of time and you just can't get enough things done? Well, I understand, and trust me, I know there's only 24 hours in a day, but why is it that some people seem to be getting more out of their time than others? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about how to get results time blocking. What's going on, everybody? Glenn P. Brooks Jr. here. Super excited to be back with you for another edition of Bootstrapping Business and Ministry. Today is going to be the first of 3 episodes that we're going to do, part 1, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to get results time blocking. Now, as you can see on my board in the back, I have used a system that's worked for me for a number of years now. I'm an author. I've written 6 books, actually 7 if you count the ones that I've co-written with my wife. And I'm getting ready to launch an 8th book. And these methods that I'm going to talk about is how I'm able to generate massive amounts of productivity in small amounts of time. The first thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is time blocking. Alexander Graham Bell said something that I think is just super important and begs repeating. He said, "Concentrate all your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun rays do not burn until brought to a focus." One of the things that I've learned is that it's not about the activity, it's about how concentrated the activity is in a small amount of time. And so I'll give you an example. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the most important things that you need to remind yourself or be reminded of time blocking. But before we do that, I want to show you something. When I approached how to block time, you have to understand that as a high I on the DISC assessment, high D on the DISC assessment, I was the guy that was super extroverted, and I really did a lot of things, but I couldn't quite follow through. And so one of the things that really taught me how to think differently about this was Gary Keller's The One Thing. It's no secret, especially to those people who are in our MAPS masterclass, we use this book to really set the foundation of sort of how to think through some things. Your one thing, the one thing, such by doing that, everything becomes easier or unnecessary. My question to you is, what is that? Do you know? Most people will say that their one thing is something that they produce, or it's a product or a service. I'm going to submit to you that your one thing is deeper than that. Your products and your services are the thing that delivers your one thing. So when we talk about time blocking, one of the things that you're going to have to understand is that the way the one thing looks in 2 cases is the pie on the left is what everything else that dominates your day. When everything else dominates your day, you'll notice that your one thing gets the least amount of attention. The one thing is in red, right? So the other pie shows your one thing when your one thing gets the attention that it deserves. And I'm going to help you guys understand. I've learned that when I focus on one thing at a time, it actually gives birth to other things. And I become amazingly productive in really little time. Let me just give you this last thing before we get started today. For me, the last 2 books that we wrote, Cherie and I, we wrote 2 books, sent them to print. They were in production, published, and ready to go in less than 90 days. And we shipped 1,500 books when we started moving them. In other words, when we launched those books, we sold 1,500 books in less than a weekend. And the reason why we were able to do that is because we were really focused on one thing. So today I'm going to talk to you about one particular component that a lot of people really overlook. And there are 3 things that you need to know when it comes to getting results utilizing time blocking. And number 1 is time block your time off. I know that sounds weird. I'm going to say it again. Time block your time off. Why do I say that? One of the biggest challenges that most entrepreneurs, business owners, ministry leaders have is that we find ourselves doing as opposed to being. Doing the work as opposed to being the leader. Doing the work as opposed to being the creative. Doing the work as opposed to being the visionary. Does that make sense? I think that I have found, and I don't think I know, that I find myself most productive when I'm rested. Crickets, right? Don't we all know that? Why is it that we don't get more rest? I'm going to submit to you because you don't block time for it. At the beginning of every year, Cherie lays out our entire year, and she will block off certain things that we know are going to reoccur: birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations, vacations. She blocks those times out and puts it on our calendar from the beginning of the year all the way out through the end of the year. So as each month rolls along, what we're doing is simply filling in the off times. There are speaking engagements that I will not accept on one of my kids' birthday. Why? Because I already know that there is a day, a time, a few hours, a weekend, whatever the case may be, that's going to be blocked off of that. There are certain things that are going to come up in and around our anniversary. We already know what those days are. And because of what we do, we're relationship development coaches. And so if we're spending a lot of time involved in everybody else's life as opposed to ours, then that's going to be something of a hit on our brand, right? Our personal lives, right? So we have got to focus on really being able to lean in and know what it looks like to block our time off, meaning our personal time off. If I back out from a year to even month to month, the same is true for that. When it comes to time off, entrepreneurs generally don't set that aside. And because of that, we don't have weekends, we don't have evenings, we just work 24/7. Now, it's one thing if that is what you intend to do. I have found at 54 years old, I can't keep up that kind of a pace. I could do that to some degree when I was in my 20s and 30s. But the entrepreneurs and the ministry leaders and the people that I get to work with, many of us either A, have 9 to 5s or other things that you're doing, and you're maybe building a business and you're planning to retire to do that business full time, or you are just, quite frankly, you just don't have the energy to kind of keep going like that. This is where I have found that it has changed the game. Do me a favor, sit down, grab your calendar, look at the entire year, and I want you to go down the year and put X marks the spots on the days or the weekends that you know for a fact that you are going to need to yourself. That's number one. Time block your time off. If this episode has helped you on any level, here's what I want you to do. I want you to click like, share, subscribe to the channel, click on one of the videos, and I hope to see you again on the next Bootstrapping Business and Ministry.